It's Pavlina from Pavlina's Kids Place, and I'm here at the Comedy Cellar with Rick Crom. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you for having me and everything. This was a lot of fun. It was very cool.
Thank you. Showcase day, final showcase for our class, our Saturday class.
Yes, it was final showcase for everyone. So a bunch of people performed and had 5-minute, what do you call it? Like a skit? Is it like a skit or is it?
Routine. We call it a routine. Yeah, it's part of our comedy class that I teach.
Yes.
And what I try to do in the class is give people the writing structure skills in addition to performance. We work on writing and performance, and we create, over 6 weeks, we create a 5 to 7 minute stand-up comedy routine like you see on TV with the stand-up comics, and just give them the basics and the introductions of that. And we do 2 showcases. We do 5 weeks, then a showcase. Then we go back into the classroom and we look at the video, we make our adjustments, and then do a second showcase. And that's what you saw today, was a second showcase. So it was our graduation showcase.
Oh, yes, they all graduated. So what is probably the hardest part about being a comedian? Because I think it's pretty hard to go up there and, you know, stand up and try to give some jokes.
Well, the hardest part about being a comedian, that's a big can of worms there, because other people have, different comedians have different areas of difficulty. But I think when you're first starting, it's making it simple, achieving simplicity in what you're trying to say, because a lot of people got great profound thoughts. Great writers have great profound thoughts, but this is a spoken word medium, and it has to land on the ear and be absorbed immediately. So the challenge in the writing is to make it accessible immediately, make it simple, and then have a point of view. Whatever it is, have a point of view. And sometimes it takes a long time to discover what that is. So it's learning the process, and then I think the hardest thing is sticking with it and promoting yourself. And because there are now millions of comedians. When I started doing comedy in 1976, 77, there were maybe 1,500 comedians in the whole country. Now there are 1,500 comedians on this block. So, so how do you make yourself stand out? What's your point of view that makes you different from 100 other people? So it's all those things rolled in together that are the difficulties, or the challenge. I won't say difficulties, the challenges. So.
Definitely. Very cool. So what was like your weirdest class? Like what was something that was just like, what is this person doing?
I think you just saw it.
Yeah, there were some interesting people. I was like, okay, cool.
Well, what's the weirdest thing that happens? I think the weirdest things that happen in class, well, let's see. I had one guy who wanted to do a whole routine about technology. Okay, so that's a valuable topic, but he wanted to do it while reading a laptop and standing on his head. He thought this would be the best way to get people's attention, to stand on his head, upside down, read his stuff off of a laptop about technology. And I said, well, you realize, of course, people can't see your face if you're standing on your head, and it's a little bit of a distraction, and I'm not listening to a thing you're saying because you're standing on your head.
Exactly. It's kind of hard to talk while you're.
Kind of hard to talk. Well, sure. I mean, just the logistics of doing that. But he insisted. I'll tell you, he just thought, no, this is going to be great. Well, of course, he died a horrible death on stage, not personally. He's still with us. He didn't die, but. So you had that. I had a fella who I mean, God love him. He's a funny guy, but he had a severe brain injury, so he couldn't speak in a way that people actually understood him. And it was sad because what he had to say was kind of funny, but because he was saying it with such a slurred, labored speech, people felt sorry for him and they didn't find him funny. Once you got used to him, you realized what he was saying was hilarious. But so weird things happen like that all the time. Sometimes I get old ladies in their 70s who are just, they're just trying to get out there and burn off some steam, and that's fun. We get all kinds of characters coming through here. Yeah.
So how has the Comedy Cellar been kind of like a launching pad for some people, or like a break?
By the way, I was just talking about my class. I wasn't talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I meant just your class and everything. But like, how has it been kind of a starting point for some people, and then getting them into their actual careers?
Well, the Comedy Cellar started here in 1982, late 81, 82, by a man named Bill Grunfest, who had a traveling show called the Comedy Cellar, and he booked comedians at the time, and he found this room, started booking it. So at that time, some of his regulars were Jerry Seinfeld, and this is the early '80s. So a lot of people who became big, Paul Reiser, Jerry Seinfeld, those guys are old guys now, but they were just kind of starting out back then, and throughout the '90s, we had who came through here. We had Louis C.K. started, and Jon Stewart here, and Rita Rudner, who you might not know, but she's a great comedian. Jim Gaffigan. Some of my late nighters when I used to host here in the late '80s, early '90s, were Jim Gaffigan, Dave Attell, Jay Moore, Sarah Silverman. These were all people who came through when they were first starting. Colin Quinn, a big part of the place. Ray Romano, just to drop some names. So it was interesting to see them be good comedians, work on their stuff, develop, and then suddenly hit big. They got their first Letterman show, their first Tonight Show, or whatever. And the nicest thing is they still come back. They still come back. On any given night, you don't know who will be at that back table. Like the other, it'd be like Chris Rock and Louis and Jerry and Ray Romano on the same night. And Amy Schumer comes here all the time. Amy's one of our regulars. She's here all the time. And I know she's a big old movie star, so we don't see her a lot. But when she's in town, drop in, do a guest set. That's why everybody keeps coming back to the Comedy Cellar, because you never know who you're going to see here. Yeah.
That is so cool. How did you get into comedy? Because you said you got in like in the 70s or something?
Well, I started, I was a musician and an actor when I was like a teenager, and I always wanted to do stand-up. So I put together an act when I was like 19 or 20 years old, and there was this club in Chicago called Cove Arts Comedy Cove, and that's where I started. And I started there, and then I joined an improv group called Chicago City Limits, and then we moved to New York, and from there, the improv group used to work here, and I'd play the piano for them, and sidekick and stuff. And when they had an opening here at the Comedy Cellar in 1984 for a sidekick to the MC, to Bill Grunfest, who I talked about, the only person they knew was me. So that's how I got in to the Comedy Cellar. So that's when I started, and I did a lot of other things in my career. I mean, I've done a lot of Broadway shows, and as a writer, I write the off-Broadway show musical, and as an actor and things like that. So, but I always wind up coming back here, either as a performer or teaching, whatever. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I used to be on the road a lot with Ray Romano and Rosie O'Donnell and people like that in Las Vegas and all that. So it's quite a long history. Now that you ask me how, I think, oh my God, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's just been like...
No wonder I'm tired.
Yeah, oh my God.
I'm exhausted.
What is the best advice that you would give to starting out comedians that want to start out, or like don't think they're funny, or anything like that?
To young comedians, first of all, don't do it. But if you're not going to listen to that piece of advice, then secondly, I'd say be hard on yourself. Decide whatever you do, have a point of view. Are you for it or against it? Write every day. Even if you write crap every day, write something every day. One joke every day. As Chris Rock used to say, I used to call him Joke a Day Rock, right? Because we would talk. The philosophy was, if you wrote a joke every day, at the end of the year, even if you had 150 terrible jokes, you had 200 good jokes, right? Or let's say you had, less than that. Thank you. Let's say you had less than that. Even so, 50 jokes a year is a lot of jokes. That's like an hour of material. So yeah, just write every day. Whether you take an hour aside, and I'm guilty of not doing that. I didn't follow my own advice. I didn't do it. No, it takes a discipline, and you have to be very realistic with yourself. A lot of people get caught up in the glamour of, oh, I'm doing my jokes and people are laughing at me. That's all I need to do now. I just do the. You need to work harder than that. You gotta, and watch other comedians as much as you can. You might want to emulate some of them to get started until you find what your voice is. That's what I would say, and don't take no for an answer.
Cool. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.